Joining us on the phones right now, not Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, not even close to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, because we visit with a conservative here on the radio show, and that is Congressman Jody Arrington on the Chad Hasty Show. Congressman, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just left the National Day of Prayer event where I listened to our president, but most importantly, I bowed my head with my fellow Americans and praised the God who blessed this country and prayed for his mercy and wisdom. And I'm just reminded, and I want your listeners and my constituents to know that the answers are not in Washington or any politician or political party. The answers are in Jesus. And that's what I believe fundamentally, and it consumes me when I worship him like I did this morning. But it guides me. I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. I may be the chief of all sinners, but I sure believe in the love and grace and goodness of God, and that he has blessed this country. And if we want to get back that greatness, then there's a lot that has to happen, but mainly it's got to be a path where we're on our knees and we're thanking him, and we're also seeking him for his mercy and his blessings. So I know you're not asking me to be the pastor of District 19, nor am I qualified, but I just thought I'd share that. It's on my heart this morning, and I got a good Lubbock pastor here with me, and it's been a lot of fun to spend time with him as well.
Well, that's great, and you know, the National Prayer Breakfast. It seems to me, it used to get a lot more coverage in the media than it does now. Am I missing something, or do you agree with that? That it used to get more coverage than it does today?
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure that the media doesn't want to hear what's being said there, but you know, it's a bipartisan event. There's a Senator Lankford from Oklahoma and a Democrat senator from Connecticut sort of helped facilitate it. Chris Tomlin led at worship. I wish the whole country could look and listen in and join the thousands that are here to pray for our country. It would be encouraging, because I know a lot of what they see on the news is anything but encouraging. So, I wish they'd cover it more, but I'm certainly going to be reporting back to my folks that today is a great day, because we're fixing our eyes not on the Capitol or the White House or on politics, but on the King of Kings.
Very good. Congressman, I'm going to place you back on hold. We've got to take our break. When we come back, we'll talk about the State of the Union address and kind of what the reaction has been since the President's State of the Union address. We'll go ahead. We'll take our break. When we come back, much more with Congressman Jody Arrington here on the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk KFYO. Chad Hasty Show, News Talk KFYO. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Joining us on the phones, Congressman Jody Arrington, who just wrapped up over at the National Prayer Breakfast. Congressman, obviously the State of the Union address is still being talked about by a lot of folks. What were your thoughts of the State of the Union address and how the President did and what he had to say?
I thought he did a great job. I thought the tone was perfect. I mean, he knows we're in a divided government. He called us to not to sort of put our partisan differences aside and look for ways to agree and find common ground and move our country forward. He said that he's hoping we won't govern as two parties but one nation, and that his agenda is not a Republican or Democrat but an agenda for the American people, reminding us we all campaigned on fair trade, infrastructure, lowering the price of health care, et cetera. So, he took the right tone, the right approach. He stayed true to his priorities. And I thought it was inspiring, but I thought it was one of his best speeches. But if I were being hypercritical, I'd say it was a little long, and I would have cut out a few things because there were just so many powerful, primary messages there. And then the stories that his guests tell when he introduces them, the World War II vets, Buzz Aldridge, and the ICE agent, and those two young ladies who lost their great grandparents and grandparents most recently to criminal aliens. Very powerful very real. And so I thought it was excellent all the way around.
When the president brought up bipartisanship and working together, that was real nice when he called for the end of resistance. But not all of your colleagues seem to support that idea, Congressman. There were quite a few Democrats, many of whom were dressed in white, who wanted to sit down during those calls for bipartisanship. And it doesn't seem like to me we're on that road of everyone getting along and working together.
Well, it's only going to hurt the Democrats if they continue to be petty and political about everything and continue to resist any progress for fear that this president might get a win. I mean, that mentality is going to turn this House back over to Republicans. We've got to rise above it. We've got to lead by example. I think the president did that. I mean, he was so gracious. You know, I mean, the only time that the group of ladies there in the middle wearing white dresses stood was to cheer for themselves. They didn't cheer for the 5 million people that have come off of food stamps and the 5+ million jobs that have been created, the new opportunities, the hope for a better future. I mean, they didn't cheer for the creating a culture that respects and cherishes life as we are creatures, born and unborn, created in the image of God. None of that. They stood and they danced and cheered for themselves. And so I think the American people get it. I've always said I believe in the American people, whether they are independents, Republicans, or Democrats. They'll exercise good judgment, and I think already they're starting to say, I don't know about this this Nancy Pelosi-led House, but, you know, we got to find ways to work together because our people are counting on us.
What do you think, and I think we've talked about this before, that maybe infrastructure is something that could be bipartisan in the House and then make its way to the Senate and then eventually to the president. Do you think that's still maybe the only major piece of legislation that we're going to see as we move towards 2020?
You know, I'm not so sure we can't get some major trade legislation. Now I'm on Ways and Means, and that's the Committee of Jurisdiction on Trade. It's also, as we discussed before, after the Farm Bill, the most important thing we can do to grow our economy and to prosper, you know, agriculture regions like West Texas. So, yeah, I think we can do some things on trade. By the way, I did see, in fairness to the Democrats, a number stand when he talked about the NAFTA 2.0 or USMCA and making sure that we do deals that are in the best interest of American manufacturers, producers, and consumers. So, yeah, I think we can do some infrastructure. I want to know about the price tag of that, where we're going to get the money. But I think it's important that we modernize to keep this economy growing. I mean, the economic boom that we talked about is tremendous. It is historic, and we've got to find ways to go to the next level, which is infrastructure, trade, labor, and other things that are the barriers to continuing to grow. I think we're going to get some bipartisan support there, but I don't know about health care. I think we're vastly divided on that. Big government, top-down control, socialism versus markets, transparency. And we all want the same thing, which is lower prices, but one party wants to have government take over. The other wants markets to solve the problem where we actually have, as consumers, choice.
Yeah. Visiting with Congressman Jody Arrington here on the Chad Hasty Show. Let me ask you about this another possible government shutdown. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is out this morning saying that it's not going to happen. There's not going to be another government shutdown. The president, as far as I know, he still wants that $5.7 billion in border security funds to build a wall or barrier or fence. He's going to El Paso next week in order to campaign for that. And it's possible that there could be another government shutdown. You've mentioned in the past that you're in favor of using that emergency power, but it doesn't look like all Senate Republicans are on board with that. So where are we in this whole deal? Do you think there will be another government shutdown, and do you think that the president will maybe still declare an emergency if he has to?
I think he has to declare an emergency on account of Democrats not willing to cooperate or find any common ground or any modicum of compromise with him. He has shown repeatedly that he's willing to do that. And I think the American people are going to extend him the grace that will come with his willingness and his leadership in that way. And listen, if you believe that this is a crisis and that a crisis of national security and public safety, and you believe you have the legal authority to do something about it, which the president does, as do I, then you have to do it, or you'd be derelict in your duty not to. So I think ultimately Pelosi's not going to let the Democrats work a deal with the president, and the president's going to have to take unilateral action. It's not ideal, but that's why we gave him the delegated authority in the cases of emergency and where there's imminent harm to our citizens to do just that. And I will encourage him and continue to do that if we can't get a deal from the Democrats.
Do you think he's more willing to declare a national emergency than go through this whole shutdown issue once again?
I think it'd be a bad idea to shut the government down again. I think you should reserve that extreme option because it's so costly and disruptive. Man, we've spent more money now on the shutdown than we have in the request for the border wall funding. Okay,
right.
So I just don't think it makes sense. I think you can use it in extreme situations like we did recently, but it proved not to move Speaker Pelosi. She didn't care about those 800,000 federal employees or the disruption of the cost. She is dug in. She thinks walls are immoral. It's a silly, irrational position, but she's going to force our president to take that final option that's on the table, and that's declare an emergency. And I continue to stay on that position that is an option that he's going to have to deploy on account of the obstinate and irrational Democratic leadership.
Congressman, as always, appreciate your time. We'll visit with you here in about a couple of weeks.
Chad, thanks. Great to be with you in West Texas.
All right. That's Congressman Jody Arrington here on the Chad Hasty Show.